Like that. I'm going to jump right into it because anything that comes out of this man's mouth is important. The Eickholt haters are going to hate that intro, but it is what it is. It's true. He is one of the maybe the few, the proud, the people who are just every day you have to wake up and deal with this portal from a media standpoint and understand who's in the portal, who isn't. We have David Eickholt on. I don't know if this is a press review show or what this entails after this season of weekly. By the way, had a fantastic time with you, David, each and every week this year. It was great.
Yeah, it was a nice change of pace. I think people liked it. I like the feedback, and it's kind of just it's just I feel like it's just different. It's just a different show than what's out there. So I've had a really good time with it.
It's certainly different than anything we've ever done. It's not something that I can do with Kevin and Grant because everything is more. It's a lot more speculative. Also, the nitty gritty details of breaking down answers from Coach Ferentz or the coordinators, whoever we get at those press conferences, isn't so much Kevin's jam. He doesn't really care about that. So find some different avenues of Hawkeye football content to tap into this year was fun. The reviews were great. The feedback was awesome. So we'll take that in consideration. I want to make David as long as he has time, and who knows, more of a feature on this platform because he's got a lot of good information. Much of that we're going to dive into today. I just finished. You just got back from somewhere. You're on the road. We're actually recording this more middle of the day.
Yeah.
Probably trying to track down. I don't know what you're trying to track down. I don't even know. Then Coach Ferentz goes on BTN. You text me. You're like, hey, let's just delay this a little bit. Coach Ferentz is going on BTN quick. And 1% of me, David, was like, he wouldn't announce his retirement on BTN,
No.
would he?
No.
It's like there had to be a press
such
conference.
a wild timing of everything.
Yeah, it would be weird. But like, I think that says something about where we are in his career. And I know we've talked about it. We won't hash it out again. But it's like he is at the point where, like Lisa's retirement was pretty sudden for most people. But there's gonna come a time where that happens. And it's like, oh, Coach Ferentz is calling a press conference. This one wasn't planned. Oh shit.
He's gonna do it when nobody expects it. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, Kirk will not want attention. He will not announce it before the year. He will not announce it in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to make it awkward. I hate to put this out there, but it's kind of true. He's not going to announce it until after a regular season and probably just before signing day.
Yeah. There's no
maybe it's in January or February, but like it'll probably be after the bowl game, actually. Not this bowl game, but like a future bowl game.
That's the thing, is it has to be, because you have to get on that carousel of like who's, and theoretically, if you're looking at staff members on your staff, there's not so much which I think there will be with Woods and Wallace, both tabbed as potential next targets. There's not as much of a urgency to be like, oh, we have to get into the carousel of who's available. And there's a lot of guys available right around this time. Like, but yeah, that's another conversation for hopefully another 2 years from now, maybe next year. Who knows? Just finished up watching the post game. It was actually last week's presser, the one we would have gone over.
Yeah.
With Tyler Barnes, Coach Ferentz and Tyler Barnes. Crazy that he is, I think his official title is general manager of Iowa football.
Yeah, I think he's still director of recruiting, but he's also general manager, and welcome to college football 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
It was a smart role for him to be put in and to at least give him the name title, because that's exactly what it is. Now he is a general manager. He's in charge of kind of allocating funds and assets to each position group, talking and meeting with position coaches. Who do they give what? Who are they going to go after? And then obviously with the transfer portal and everything else, I mean, it's so crazy. I heard him, it really is.
We'll get into this in a little bit, but I heard him mention the word budget 4 times in his 25-ish minutes at the stand. And it almost feels slimy, like in this transition period of this becoming what college football is now. But it is reality. Iowa football does have a budget. And in fact, I think I just saw some numbers come out on Twitter yesterday about like how much NIL fund was raised and Texas A&M were up at the top, and Indiana was like competing with other higher end Big Ten schools at around like 14 million. I'd be really curious to see what Iowa's actual numbers are. They aren't that high is the thing. Like they just aren't. And that's a really weird thing for Tyler Barnes to sit in his office and just sort of be like he's playing Monopoly. He's legitimately waking up every day and he's like, okay, he's in contact with I'd love to know if like him and Brad have a weekly call. And I'm
At
sure
least.
I'm
At
sure
least once.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably
No question.
probably several times a week. I know Brad has sort of mentioned that casually. He's like, yeah, I'm on the phone all the time with these guys. And they're just kind of talking like, hey, we have $2 million. We have three, how much do you want to spend on this guy? How much are we going to, and this is a huge year, David, because we lose a lot. We lose a lot of people.
There are going to be more people coming back than I thought.
Well, and this
you
is
would have
what
asked me about a month and a half ago, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. But Iowa is still going to lose a lot regardless.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of we've run out of years. As crazy as that is, with the COVID years and the NCAA basically granting people 6, 7, 8 years.
Cam Rising's still eligible.
Unbelievable.
He's in the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence, who will be a fifth-year pro next season.
Oh my God. So stuff like that happens. You think that these guys are just unlimited. They basically stick around forever, but like, no, like Jay Higgins cannot come back. Sebastian Castro cannot come back. Like we don't have actual years. By the way, in the theme of festivity, if you're watching the YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We're going to be doing podcast content all off season long. And look at this. It's
I love that.
It's Christmas Goat Wallace. Can't get better than that. You actually can't get this t-shirt anymore. You could if you wanted to. Look at this you could get the original Goat Wallace, but not the Christmas Goat Wallace. Hit that QR code on the screen if you're interested. Head to our store and buy some merch or whatever. Support the walk-ons. Guys coming back. Logan Jones announces that he's coming back. He was one of the big ones, especially on an offensive line that's going to be depleted. We lose. This is where I'm going to have to start actually doing research, and I'm going to sound dumb for this one podcast, but we'll get a little bit smarter here, and that's okay. We lose Mason Richmond.
Correct.
We lose. Do we have Connor Colby still, or is he gone?
I believe Connor Colby can return.
Okay, so he's a guy that's up in the air.
I need to double check that. I should know that top of my head, but I've had 10,000 things.
Right, I know, and your brain is probably fried right now. I know for a fact that Logan and Dunker were two big ones that were like they have an extra year, and we would love to have them back. Jennings Dunker, fair to say, one of the best tackles in the country this year.
I think he has a case for it.
Definitely a top 10 tackle.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a legitimate decision to make. But after talking to some people, I would expect Jennings Dunker to return to Iowa next season.
It's what I heard as well, especially and I don't know how much of a factor Logan Jones. And here's the weird thing, David, is there's going to be, and maybe it's not Iowa specifically, but there's going to be teams where they have guys like a Logan Jones or a Jennings Dunker, and they're good enough where you're like, we'd like you to come back a little bit, but you can't. There could be scenarios where the team is like, we don't have the spot. Like we're not gonna have the roster space. We're gonna talk about roster decreasing in size here. We're gonna talk about scholarship distribution and all these things. And it's like, so I would imagine that at most schools they put experienced guys like a Logan Jones, like a Jennings Dunker at the top of their list of how do we build our roster for next year. But there could be some scenarios around the country where a guy is like not quite good enough to be an absolute yes, we want you to come back, and they're just like, hey, thank you for your time here. You were great for us, but like it might be time for you to move on because we have to feed through this cycle of how things work now. If we have Logan back, if we can get Jennings Dunker back, That's a really good start. That's 40% of a good offensive line next year.
I think there's cautious optimism around it. I think they have great belief in the younger players that have gotten action. I think getting Cade Pieper some significant action this season is going to pay dividends down the stretch. Logan Jones, obviously returning. Connor Colby, from what I read, I just checked in. I don't think he can come back for another season.
Okay.
Because if you keep in mind, Logan Jones got here in 2020.
Yep.
He redshirted, but that's a COVID year, so it doesn't really count.
Connor did not. Colby did not redshirt.
Connor got here in 2021, I believe.
But did not redshirt.
He did not redshirt. No, he played right away.
Yeah.
So that's why
he doesn't have a COVID year and he didn't have a redshirt year. So that's why. So he's a true just unicorn 4-year guy in today's.
He's like the old norm.
Crazy guy had to do a full college degree in 4 years. What a poor sap.
Man, what a loser.
I'm looking at it right here. We had Richmond, Stevens, Jones, Colby, Dunker. Jones is back. We think Dunker might come back.
I would be surprised if Dunker does not come back, but again, NFL teams really like him, and his upside is incredibly high. Like, if he comes back to Iowa next season, Tyler, he's a legitimate All-American caliber offensive tackle, or at least has the potential to be. But at minimum, he's an all-conference tackle.
I think his runway for how much better he can get is very long.
Yes.
It's very long.
Yep.
Mason Richmond is gone. We'll say Connor Colby's gone. So those are two for sure. That leaves Bo Stevens, who it says redshirt junior. So I'm going to assume that
I'm 95% sure Bo Stevens can return for another season. He's also struggled with injuries on and off as well. So I'm just looking right now at Mason Richmond. Mason Richmond would be gone as well. Yes.
So theoretically, and this is another thing, is guys get to be 22, 23 years old. I was there. It wasn't me specifically, but there were some guys at that point in their careers that was like, I'm just done with football. Like, and I know that's crazy hard to believe for some people listening to the show. Guys get, they start to mature. They start to maybe have a significant other that they start to like build a life with. They're like engaged. Like, guys are starting to, some people are like pregnant at this point in their life. People starting to have kids, like they're starting to move on in life.
I mean, that Logan Jones, he told us 3 or 4 weeks ago when you and I were talking on the podcast that he was preparing to leave Iowa. This was going to be his last game in Kinnick Stadium.
Really?
And then all of a sudden, he said in a press conference, he goes like, yeah, this is it. Because keep in mind, Logan Jones is getting married this upcoming year. Like, you talk about ready to move on. I mean, not many married couples want to play college football or be a part of that college scene. They want to go.
Yeah, you just start to be an adult, and you're like, well, let's go do the next thing, right? And like this college football thing has played itself out, but there's a chance that for a line that we thought might be decimated again, like if Bo Stevens chooses to return and can keep the health and the injuries under control.
So yes, Bo Stevens can return.
That's potential to have 3 of your 5 starters back, and I'm actually very okay with that. That makes things way better offensively, as far as if Bo Stevens and Logan Jones both decided to not return. Logan Jones off to the NFL opportunity. Bo Stevens maybe just calls it a career. And then Dunker decides, hey, I'm going to go to the NFL. We could have been decimated. It could have been 0 for 5.
Yeah.
And the team automatically looks significantly different. And then Coach Ferentz and the boys are like, cool, we have 3 extra roster spots. But now a lot of our allocation is in this NIL portal thing is going straight to the offensive line. You build from the inside out. So just talking this through over the last 8 minutes, I actually feel a lot better about our offensive line. You look at the guys behind that, David, and I don't know a lot. This is where my knowledge very thin, and it probably will have to get a little bit better. I see Locke, Pieper, Ellsbury. Ellsbury's a redshirt senior, so I don't know if he has any time left. Mislinski and DeYoung. DeYoung's got to be done.
DeYoung's done. DeYoung is done. I know that for a fact.
So DeYoung,
Trevor Lauck was very highly touted coming out of high school. They're very excited about him. I don't know if he'd be ready to step in right away. Personally, I think he needs 1 more year, but that's another guy that I'm very, very high on. I mean, I think he got a little bit overshadowed because he was in that same recruiting class, I believe, as Caden Proctor. And when Iowa had Proctor attracted all the attention. But Trevor Lauck's a very, very good prospect. And I can tell you, I've been talking to some people. I will be surprised if Iowa doesn't at least dip their toes in for an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
kind of give them that little bit of cushion heading in next year. And again, you look at that offensive line. I don't know why you wouldn't, but I also understand how much money an elite offensive tackle can kind of get through the portal.
And this is where I was going with the offensive line. We're not going to do this with every position today because it's a whole other maybe series of podcasts for the offseason, a lot of which will be answered in the coming weeks. But I'm just curious, like, is that a spot? Where are the spots that Iowa uses the money they do have, whether that's $1 million or $4 million, whatever that number may be? It looks like one offensive lineman spot is probably going to be high on the list.
Yeah.
Trying to find somebody who's experienced and can step in at the tackle position. And then after that, if all goes well here, it looks like you might just have to fill a guard spot, and maybe Peeper's that guy. And there's your O-line for next year. What do you think are the other big positions across the entirety of the team where we are going to actually have to dip into the portal and pay out a significant amount of money for a starter in the portal?
First and foremost, it's quarterback.
Well, that one.
Undeniably. I mean, Marco Linez is gone, and that should surprise nobody.
No.
Cade McNamara is gone. James Razar was not quarterback. He got moved to wide receiver. He is gone. Iowa right now, and I put in a crystal ball last night for Iowa to land Auburn transfer quarterback Hank Brown. And a lot of people are freaking out about it. And I kind of understand.
David, people are pissed.
They are pissed. But
why?
I don't think he's the guy that can push Sullivan. But let me ease some worries here. I don't think so.
Wow.
Personally. I can tell you that Iowa is still going to try to get another quarterback in the portal. The way they're looking at Hank Brown is the Marco Linez replacement, in my opinion, like that number 2 guy. Okay. Because and again, this is just me. I have not asked about this. This is my opinion. Jackson Stratton has enough on tape where if he wanted to transfer down to a D1 program and go down a level and get a scholarship, he's probably going to be able to do that with what he has on tape.
Sure.
Especially as he goes through bowl prep. I would be very surprised if Iowa decided to say, hey, you know what, we're going to offer you a scholarship. They're bringing in 2 quarterbacks. One's preferred walk-on, the son of former Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald. They're bringing in Jimmy Sullivan. They have Brendan Sullivan, no relation, by the way, for another year. Assuming Iowa lands Hank Brown, which I think they will, I still think they need one more quarterback. So they're going to try to get a guy that can come in and push Brendan Sullivan and compete for the starting spot. And I'm willing to believe that they are going to pay a good amount of money to bring in somebody. For everybody freaking out, this is day 3 of the portal. We are in day 3.
David, there's a million kids in the portal already. We have to get them all.
So many. Oh, dude,
I'm going to do
the other part is with Hank Brown. This is where people, if they say they trust Lester, you have to trust Lester.
Absolutely.
Get the people that Tim Lester wants in his room and then judge him.
Yep.
That's why I've refrained from the passing game or the quarterback development, because it's not his guys.
Yeah.
It's a totally different style and skill set of quarterback. You have to let him get his guys and then develop them from that point on. So
we're gonna make a t-shirt that says "Let Tim cook."
I like it. Are you gonna make him Tiny Tim?
I don't.
I was thinking Christmas in my head. That's why.
Maybe. But we gotta let Lester cook a little bit. Man, you can't judge before he gets to mold
Absolutely
the guys that he wants. So let me try, and maybe this will be cathartic for the fans and myself to try and understand the totality of where our quarterback situation sits right now. Okay.
Yep.
We have Brendan Sullivan, who is likely going to be the starter in the bowl game.
He is healthy, by the way. Kirk Ferentz did say like he's totally healthy.
Okay.
In the Big Ten Network conference he did like an hour ago.
Yeah, love to see that. He's likely going to be our starter. He's also likely the front runner outside of some other guy, we'll get to him in a second, that they could bring in the portal for big money. So he's currently our 1.
Correct.
With an asterisk.
Correct.
Our current 2, let's assume Hank Brown is part of the situation, is him. We're going to bring in Hank Brown. And money-wise, theoretically, or we're gonna posture on here that we're probably not spending a lot of money on Hank Brown.
I would agree with that.
Okay. That will probably ease some concerns of the people, because I think a lot of people probably I don't think a lot of people think that we would go for 2 NIL transfer quarterbacks. Like most people are going to think, oh, we're getting a quarterback. That's the one we're going after.
And I understand why. But you also have to look at what he accomplished at Auburn and who the other suitors are. What Iowa's going to promise Hank Brown is, hey, you have 3 years of eligibility left.
Yeah, he's young.
Tim is a guy that's a developer. Come into the system, learn for a year, and then we'll give you every chance to compete if you can be the guy the following season.
Yep. And you also have to consider Iowa's quarterback situation where we're decimated.
They don't have anybody.
We don't have quarterbacks.
They have one scholarship quarterback right now.
Which brings me to Jackson Stratton. Him in the current situation, it sounds like that if you had to guess on his situation, he might be leaning portal if things work out the way that we're kind of describing that they would.
Again, I've talked to nobody. I'm just connecting.
No, I know.
I
this
think
is
it
us
makes
connecting
sense
dots.
for both parties if Jackson Stratton wants a legitimate shot at being a regular full-time starting quarterback.
And here's the problem with that too, as a guy who's not on scholarship, is the roster limits and you get to pay the extra 20 guys out. Tyler Barnes talked a little bit about this whole, they get to start paying the players, I think this year. I don't know when that starts, but Iowa and every other school in the country is going to receive, I think the figure is $22 million.
I believe somewhere around that, yes.
And that is then free reign to be distributed by the university to all of their student athletes.
Welcome to crazy.
Of which, if you're smart and you pay the Golden Goose, which is the football team in most places, you're going to allocate 80% of that money, maybe more, to the football team. So let's call it $16-17 million goes to Iowa football. Okay, so now you get to pay that out to some of those 20 guys that don't have official scholarships, but like, is Jackson Stratton a guy that they want to spend some money from there? Like, that's going to be basically the conversation. And he has to understand that if it looks like as they get into the spring and they're heading Sullivan as the number one guy and they get somebody else, that's the last piece of the equation. We think maybe they go and get somebody else for big money relative to what we have. Wow, what a crazy, David, this is nuts.
It's going to get a lot more complicated before it gets simplified.
You could technically tell an NIL, and this is like nothing's set in stone, but you could tell an NIL guy, say we want a big quarterback transfer. I don't know if you have heard any other names of big potential guys that Iowa would be in the running for.
Iowa's done homework on several. Let's put it that way. But you know how important Kirk values leadership and culture fit and everything else. It's essentially speed dating. And if there's one inkling of Kirk or Tyler or Tim where they don't have full confidence in that player, they are not going to take the chance on them.
No, they're not. They're people. They are people. I saw some Iowa burners just erect over the Florida State guy in the transfer portal. I don't know his name.
I mean, that's the guy I think you would want to take a chance on. But in my opinion, you either take a chance on him or Hank Brown. You aren't taking two developmental pieces because you have to have somebody else that can come in and immediately push Brendan Sullivan for the starting spot.
I might as well ask you now because you're my only source. The Richmond guy. What do we think about him?
I think he's a decent football player. I think the fit makes a lot of sense, but I'm also not really convinced that he's the immediate answer for next season. I think you either would take, I believe he has 2 years of eligibility. You either take him or you take Hank Brown.
Okay, so who's a guy that wouldn't be developmental and we would spend money on that might come? Like, is there anybody out there right now that would make sense?
My problem with this, and again, it's a totally fair question, is if I tell you who I think Iowa should go after and they don't, then I just look like an ass.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
But there are a few different quarterbacks where I look at in the portal and like, man, that's a guy I'd love to see.
Okay.
Like that guy makes a ton of sense to me. I just had one this morning and I sent to one of my group texts. I'm like, you know what? This is a guy where if you're Iowa, I think you go in and you throw a lot of money to. But I'll come back to this as I look it up. But I know you asked me a little bit earlier about positions. Oh, by the way, I found it. It was the California quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. That's the guy you throw 7 figures at. I think he'd be a perfect fit. But that's also going to be a guy that's going to be touted by Blue Bloods. He's that
Right.
good.
Well, that's the problem here is all the guys that are in this tier of, he's not a Hank Brown. He's not a developmental guy. This is a guy who steps in immediately. He overtakes Sullivan and Hank Brown as the number one. He's our guy in 2025. What is Iowa's odds of getting a guy like that versus
It's
the other?
tough. They have to take the Indiana route, in my opinion. You got to go get somebody.
That's what I'm saying.
Or like a first team, because what Curtis Rorke did. I mean, we all thought he was a good quarterback. Then he got to Indiana and absolutely lit it up. Right?
I think
he's a top 5 quarterback in the country.
And I don't think Lester needs to hear Tyler Kluber or David Eickholt say this, but if I'm the guy, if I'm deciding right now, I'm like, yo, Tim Lester, go search the MAC for the hidden gem. Find the guy that you like the best. Bring the MAC guy in. We don't care. I don't want Miller Moss. I don't want some big time schools failed.
I'll tell you, for what Miller Moss wants price wise, you don't want Iowa touching it.
No.
Because he is not worth what he is seeking, but I'll tell you, he's going to get what he's seeking.
Well, and there's other, and this isn't for sure, but there's other things to consider there, like, and this is where Kirk and Tyler Barnes and them are so good. They're people. The kind of kids who go to USC and they're 5-star recruits, and like, there's a certain
aura.
There's an aura, if we're going to use current slang, about those kids that are not going to make them great fits for the Iowa football program. We'll just put it that way.
It's not that they're bad kids either.
No.
It's just two totally different equations, two separate playing fields. Neither one's better than the other, but just the way Iowa football runs, that's not going to be it. And that's why Iowa picks and chooses people so carefully, because another couple of guys, another couple of guys who I think Iowa's going after currently right now, it's the Central Michigan defensive tackle, Jonah Pace.
I saw him
visiting this weekend. He's a very good football player. They're going after defensive tackle.
We need a tackle.
That's going to be a position that they spend money on. And did you see the Miami, Ohio cornerback that entered the portal?
No.
You talk about a dude.
Because we need a DB too.
That's the guy who it's Ryan Strader. He has an offer from Iowa. They are in talks about getting him on campus. And I will tell you right now, I watched 35 seconds of this film, Tyler, and I said he's a Phil Parker guy. That's exactly what Iowa needs.
Dog.
Like, he is. Let me pull up his stats real quick.
Let me float a name to you real quick, just out of pure I saw this and I was like, well, that would be a guy to get. Last year, Dylan Thieneman out of Purdue.
That's a tough poll, but I'll tell you, that's a guy who you really have to go after.
Freshman All-American at Purdue, and I don't know what he did this season. Purdue was obviously dog shit.
Yep.
He's probably like one of the top safeties in, or
I think he's the top defensive transfer by us right now. By
in the entire transfer portal. So he's going to be pretty sought after, like every SEC, every school in the country. But you'd think with Iowa's reputation, you're like, well, dang, could we get him on the Hawkeye defense? Like, bring him to the Doughboys. But then again, you go back to the other side and you're like, but we don't have enough money. He's going to get offered $1 million or $1 by an SEC school, and we're not going to be able to compete with that. We're not going to give a DB $1 million. It's just not going to happen.
I was going to look at the Northwestern guy, Theron Johnson. He's another really, really good player. But let me read you these stats from Ryan Strader, right?
Yeah.
53 tackles this season, 40 of which were solo, 2 picks for return yards of 33, 17 pass deflections.
Oh, my God.
Led the country.
Is he huge?
6 feet, 6'8" wingspan.
Oh, yeah. Talk to me. That's the kind of guy.
12 last season. That's when I told you 35 seconds later. I looked at his film and I said, that's a guy who Iowa should really, really go after. He's from Pittsburgh, so Iowa has the connections to the Pittsburgh area as well. I think it makes a lot of sense. That's going to be another guy I keep a close eye on. And Iowa, I think, will seek at least one wide receiver. Do they need one at this point? No, but I think they need some proven experience. As far as numbers, do they need one? And another position I will throw out there, not anything I'm hearing. This is just me thinking out loud. It might go against what Kirk Ferentz and them do. I think they need to look at running back. Because I love Jazzy Patterson. I think Kamari Moulton showed me a lot in the last month of the season about what he can be next year. So I want to give him credit for that. But if I'm Tim Lester and I'm Iowa, I absolutely try to utilize the Caleb Johnson momentum and to go land an absolute unit of a running back, especially with how much you relied on it. But again, now you're talking, okay, you land a pretty decent DB. You try to get a wide receiver. When I'll tell you, Iowa's going to have to pay more for a wide receiver than another school, just because of what's going on right now and the lack of production they have. You're getting 2 quarterbacks.
You're running out of money.
That's what I'm saying.
I
think you at least look at it.
And the thing I was going to bring up was, well, now with this, now we have more money, right? For like, they're going to have more money now. And I don't know how it gets divvied up, who decides that as far as the university, and I don't know when that money goes into effect. But if you're Iowa or any school and you know that you're about to have $15 million supplemented into your program from I think that's revenue sharing, then you can start to say like, well, that's every single year, right? So now you're saying, okay, well, we actually do have the money to throw around to some of these guys. By the way, the fact that these kids are now, like, every roster across the country is going to have kids making $500,000, $1 million a year is absurd. As a guy who was not too long ago on one of these rosters, unbelievable. Not that the long snappers are getting any of the money anyway, although Nebraska should probably throw some money at somebody. What is? I look at the roster. You mentioned we're going to need YA Black. Gone. Very excited to see his potential at the next level.
I think he'll be a better pro than he was college player.
I think he's one of those guys. Yeah. There's a guy that lined up right next to him. His name's Aaron Graves. Heard a lot about how he was gone after this season, early in the season.
I think he comes back.
I was thinking that all year. Like, I don't know if Aaron's having, and this is nothing against Aaron, but like, I don't know if that's the year that you want to end on if you're trying to have the highest draft stock possible. He's got one more year left. Man, if we could retain him, pay him a little money. That's a guy you pay some money. And that would be a good get. Because then you only need one DT in the. Really love what Llewellyn's been doing for us.
He's going to be really good next year. Unfortunately, Brian Allen's going to miss a lot of spring as well. And that's a big
tough.
Bummer for him because I think his ceiling's pretty high as well. But there's another guy that I'll mention that at the beginning of the year, I said there's no way he's coming back. And as of right now, I'm inclined to believe that he will return as well, and that's Xavier Wampa.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking that he would be gone. So we're on.
I thought at the beginning of the year he would be, because this is the year I thought he was going to have that breakthrough sort of season. But
him and Aaron, very similar to me. They're like juniors. This is the year where you could just go high in the draft, like Caleb Johnson, basically. They're just they're the other side of the coin where it's like, both of them probably would like a slightly better season stat wise, put more on film, up that draft stock a little bit. If we could get Wampa and Graves back, I mean, it would feel there's a lot of things that would feel very
athletically, those guys are first round picks.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. Like, I'm not saying they both will go first round or either one will go first round, but if they put together a dominant season on the football field, like athletically and just core wise, what NFL players like to build off of, those are 2 first round guys. They're freak athletes, both of them.
Do we have to go again? This is crazy. Like, we've already talked about 10 spots.
I don't envy Tyler Barnes' job.
No, not at all.
It sucks.
David, are we going to have any linebackers next year?
They're not going to bring in anybody. I think they feel really good about who they got.
We feel good about linebackers.
At this point, when it comes to Seth Wallace, he's in the same category as Phil Parker for me.
Yeah.
Until I'm proven otherwise. They're going to be fine. And another thing I think to remember is you have these 4th, 5th, and 6th year guys, right? But if you remember, they've said this multiple times in interviews, they really don't do a lot during spring. They don't do a ton. They get back into shape during fall camp. Who's getting all those reps? Yeah. It's the guys sitting behind them.
Yeah.
So the only reps that these guys that are behind them aren't getting is real-time game reps. But they're getting reps in practice.
Right.
They're getting reps in the offseason. Now, will there be a dip in productivity? I don't envy anybody who has to come in to replace Jack Campbell and Jay Higgins.
Right.
because holy hell, that sucks.
But you never know. Maybe we just get another one. Huh?
Maybe just churn them out again, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to go after anybody in the transfer portal for linebackers as of right now. But again, I'm not going to be surprised if somebody else just ends up leaving. Like there is nobody on the roster that you could point to and say, I'd be surprised if they left to go to another school. Probably other than Aaron Graves, considering he committed when he was 14 years old.
Yeah.
And told everybody else essentially to F off.
That guy's going to the league or he's a Hawkeye. There's no other school. There's no other school in him.
But anybody else on the roster, I'll be like, yep, okay. Like that's where I'm at when it comes to this portal stuff. The sick side of me loves covering the portal, mind you. Like I complain about it, but this is fun season for me. Like this is duck hunting season for me.
This is chaos season for me, just thinking about this. What I mean, we talk about Tyler Barnes. I mean, this guy has to be stressed. I mean, it's impossible. He almost needs his own team. I don't even know how you keep all this under wraps. If we're going to just go down the list, by the way, I think we're good at specialists. I think we have Drew for one more year. I think Dakin's obviously young. Actually, Elkin, I think, is done this year. So
Elkin, I believe, is done this year.
Yes. And I don't even know who our backup long snapper is. That's probably bad as the former long snapper guy. Spend some money in the portal, baby. Give somebody $1 million to snap the football. That's what would make me happy. Talked about the new class. I want to mention them quick.
Yep.
Small class.
It is.
Have to be because they're and the number in the press conference that I think Lystico put out there was like they're going from 128 to 105.
There's a lot of really sad stories across college football of guys who have already played their last snap and they have no idea.
And they don't know that that's the case. That's 23 guys for Iowa. How many guys? We brought in 17. Dude, my class was 37 players combined, scholarship and walk-on.
Now, if you get a preferred walk-on from a school, that's a hell of an accomplishment. Like even more so than it was before because of these limited roster. I mean, people freaked out about Nebraska losing all these people. And I mentioned it to you. Nebraska has 150, like 140 to 150 guys. Like they're cutting a third of their football team. Now, again, a lot of those guys are never going to play, but like it's still kind of mind-boggling to think about.
So we give ourselves a little bit of room, or we get ourselves a little bit of the way there with signing a much smaller class. Kills me. There's only 2 preferred walk-ons in this class, and Tyler Barnes said there's usually 10 to 12, and that was the case. I think there was 20 walk-ons in my class, and 10 of them you didn't ever hear about. 10 of them you did, and then maybe 7 of us made it through or something like that. But 2 walk-ons, 15 scholarship guys. Someone brought up the guy. There was a late push by Louisville for a DB. I don't know what his name is, but we were pretty excited to get him. Who is this guy, and is he real good, or what's going on there?
I'm sorry, you have to reframe that for me because I just got caught up reading.
You're fine.
Bill Belichick has now finalized the deal to be the new head coach.
He is officially going to take over. That's a horrible idea for him. I just don't see that working.
I'm stunned. Sorry, that's why my jaw kind of dropped. Like I reread to make sure I wasn't getting parodied account. Did you basically hear that he put like a 400-page manifesto in front of the president and just be like, all right, this is what I need. Probably said it just like that too.
The fact that he has a 400-page, that sounds unbelievable. But that doesn't surprise me from Bill.
But yeah, no, I mean, as far as the roster limits and everything go, again, you could tell how pissed off KF was about it during the press conference. Yeah. Like he was very sad about it. Matt Rule was in the same boat. I know a lot of people don't like Matt Rule anymore, but I mean, Iowa and Nebraska, when it comes to walk-on traditions, they're probably 2 of the best programs in college football historically when it comes to that. So you have to give them their respect there. And ultimately, I think Kirk mentioned it too. Like we might never get a Dallas Clark because Dallas Clark probably wouldn't have made the 105 at that time.
Because he was a 4th-string linebacker. He wasn't a tight end yet.
Crazy to think about. So yeah, even getting a preferred walk-on and getting guys to commit as preferred walk-ons is a big deal. And you think about the caliber of the preferred walk-ons, like Pat Fitzgerald's family obviously can afford to send his son to walk on somewhere.
Sure.
But that's a mid 3-star quarterback that had offers from multiple group of 5 schools. Like, he is not your average walk on.
No, it says a lot about what Ferentz and staff think of the kid
Yeah.
and what Pat Fitzgerald and his family and the kid think about Iowa and the respect there.
Well, remember, Pat Fitzgerald was there when Brendan Sullivan started and led the team to a win. I mean, I caught him giving him a big hug
After the game.
outside the Iowa tunnel.
Yeah.
When that happened. So for as much as people and whoever else ran with, oh, Pat Fitzgerald hates Iowa, and that might have been true, 25 years ago or whatever. It's very, very clear that there's a lot of respect between Fitzgerald and Ferentz and kind of the programs we're running a very, very similar way. So, yeah, man, like you said, this is chaos season. I'm still learning more every single day about what's going on. Obviously, myself, Chad Lysko, Scott Dockman, a bunch of people are racing to get scoops. Doc, maybe not as much so, because I think he's going to be covering the college football playoff.
Yeah, they've got him. They've got him doing like all college football now.
They should. He's one of the best football minds in America college football minds in America when it comes to dissecting a game. Like, the dude knows ball.
Yeah, I love it.
He's good.
I love
it. I give him a lot of credit, man. And again, it's unfortunate that he's not doing like every single little thing Iowa again. I think Iowa fans would love that, but I think it's better for college football and national coverage to have Doc doing big picture stuff too.
Yeah. Talk to me quickly about Yosei Epinesa.
Monster.
Is he unbelievable?
Yeah, he's a monster.
Is he? I think he's on the same level as as really.
Yeah, when we talked to AJ when he was a junior at Iowa, he said my youngest brother's the best. He says he's more athletic than any of us.
So this
Yosei is a freak of nature.
So he's the real deal. He's the highlight of the class, you would say?
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at 24/7 Sports, they did positional kind of superlatives, and they basically ranked Yosei as the outlier because 24/7's higher on him than any other recruiting service. Like, he's a 5-star by us. He can walk in. It's very, very possible that he starts or gets major rotational snaps right away. Like, he's that good. 6, I think he's a little bit shorter than AJ is, but 275. I think he's more polished of a pass rusher than AJ was when he first got to Iowa. Yosei has a sack record at Edwardsville, and the dude's just so locked into football. Like, he barely talked to any recruiting reporters, and credit his dad, Epi, for really being open with reporters and talking for his son, just to kind of keep him out of the limelight. But I guess that's what happens when you go through the process time and time again.
Yeah, they've been there,
right? But no, Yosei, I don't want to put any too much expectation on the kid. But this is a kid that every single program in America would have wanted. And it was not a done deal that Iowa was going to land him until he came on that official visit back in June. And AJ just so happened to be in Iowa City as well. Yosei is a freak. He's absolutely the crown jewel of the class, but I'll also throw in Thomas Meyer, the tight end from Clear Lake.
Stud?
Monster.
Well, that's one position we didn't mention. I feel pretty good about Estrenga and Ortworth.
Keep an eye on Gavin Hoffman.
Is he? I don't even know who he is.
You're going to learn.
Okay.
He was a freshman tight end this year. I think he has the potential to crack the 2 deeps next year. There's going to be a lot of talent in the tight end room.
So we don't have to go to the portal for tight end.
I
nice.
don't think so. I would love to see Aston Estrenga take a big step forward.
Sure.
In some regards next year. But I also am inclined to believe that the passing game really didn't depend on the tight end as much as it probably should have this year.
Yeah.
And I really hope Luke Lachey ends up getting drafted decent because I think he's a really good football player. Great kid.
He'll be a steal. Someone's going to steal him.
Yeah, he's a freak athlete. But, yeah, and then they feel really, really good about the 2 freshman tight ends that they're getting on campus as well. They're in that recruiting class. So Abdul Hodge has a plethora of riches, and it just comes back to, hey, guess what? Abdul, keep holding down the reputation that Iowa has a tight end. He's got the pieces to do it, at least fundamentally and foundation-wise.
To finish this thing, before we started this thing around 11:25 a.m. on the 11th, this is actually probably going to come out to start next week. So a lot of things are probably going to happen between now and then, knowing the current state of college football. So some things might be out of date already of what David and I have said here. But on our end, the content production here in the month of the holidays is just gonna be a little slower. So this is where we're at.
Well, for you guys, maybe it's gonna be chaos for us.
Yeah. How many guys as of the recording of this podcast were already in the portal for Iowa? Was it 14 or 15 I saw yesterday?
I believe so. If you include all the walk-ons and
Yeah.
stuff, yeah, I think it's around there.
Yeah.
But it's double digits. But I'll also throw out a little hot prediction here. I think Iowa lands at least 2 transfers by the time this episode airs.
Okay.
I won't say which ones, but I do have a crystal ball in for one.
Yeah. David Eickholt bringing us all the goodies, all of the Christmas goodies around the holiday season. This will be our final podcast with David for 2024. Again, everybody shout him out, give him a little thank you on the social media. All right. He gave us a lot of his time, a lot of his knowledge, wisdom, especially today. We'll have him back a lot more in 2025 going forward. This is a great little partnership duo we got.
It'll be a fun time, and I think there'll be something else in the works too with G-Bone. But we'll I'll leave that as the teaser.
Oh, we love it. All right. Again, a lot of the information we just talked about could be outdated or advanced upon now that we're 3 or 4 days after this thing was recorded. Portal season, NIL season, moving quickly. Keep up to date. Follow David for all the updates. Subscribe to 247 Sports. I think
look at that little plug. Appreciate it.
Yeah, look at that. It only took 46 minutes. I'll give it to you once you get 45 minutes into the thing. That's it. We will be back with our final episode with Coach Justin Lima on Thursday. That'll be our final little dive into what a bowl prep looks like, strength conditioning wise, what bowl game week looks like, and how the strength coaches bring the training down to wherever the location is for the bowl game, and then what that winter phase looks like, including when the guys go home for break, what are they doing? So all of that coming. Before you know it, Hawks will be playing Missouri in Nashville. We're going to be covering it all. We'll see you then. Peace.